Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Tuesday. This is Seattle Now. Howard Schultz has stepped back in as CEO of Starbucks as the company he acquired grapples with a union wave and lower share prices. We'll talk about what he can do about it with the Wall Street Journal's Heather Haddon in a minute. But first, let's get you caught up. All the interviews are done. King County Executive Dow Constantine will announce his pick for sheriff today. The finalists are interim Sheriff Patty Cole Tyndall, Charles Kimball from Killeen, Texas, and Reginald Mormon from Atlanta, Georgia. King County is appointing their sheriffs now, not electing them. That's the result of a change made by voters back in 2020. In a blow to labor organizers, Amazon workers at a warehouse on Staten Island have overwhelmingly rejected forming a union. The 62% rejection follows a historic, successful grassroots union effort from the Amazon labor union last month. The results of that election are being challenged by Amazon. A union attorney says the group is considering filing objections to the most recent election. And online real estate company Redfin will change the way it lists houses as part of a settlement from a lawsuit alleging housing discrimination. As part of the agreement, the Seattle-based company will change its minimum housing price policy, which fair housing advocates allege was a way to block out lower-income homebuyers. The company will also pay $4 million to settle the suit brought by the National Fair Housing Alliance and 9 other fair housing organizations. Howard Schultz had a quaint vision for Starbucks when he acquired the company in 1987. It would be a place where people would enjoy coffee or espresso and stay a while. But the coffee giant has changed dramatically since then. And there's trouble. There are roughly 9,000 Starbucks-owned stores in the U.S., and about 200 of those stores are voting on whether to unionize. Profits are up, but Starbucks share prices are down 32% in the past year. Howard Schultz has been brought back in as CEO after stepping back in 2017. Can he right the course for the company? Wall Street Journal reporter Heather Haddon is reporting on Starbucks and is here to tell us more. Hey, Heather, thanks a lot for taking the time.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate your reporting. You know, Howard Schultz is back again as CEO, but this is a very different Starbucks. The original experience that Schultz created relied on people wanting to be in the shop and drinking special coffee. And, you know, these days, as you reported, mostly people are drinking iced coffee. They want it to go. They're using the drive-through. How does Starbucks' changing identity factor into what's happening with Howard Schultz?
I think it factors in quite a bit. Like you said, the coffee chain that Howard Schultz first helped to popularize decades ago was all about the in-store experience. They even coined and popularized this phrase called the third place, where, you know, it's between work and home and where you sit and drink, presumably maybe your hot coffee, maybe have a snack, bring your laptop, meet with your friends. And that's a very different store than the one we have today, where it's, you know, just a huge proportion of their sales in the U.S. is to go. So that's drive-through, that's delivery, that's mobile order and pay. And it's a different flow for customers, but it's also a very different flow for the workers who need to make these drinks. They need to make them quickly at volume. And for people who maybe don't have quite the same patience, you know, they want to get their coffee and go. And that's just a different experience than the one that Howard formulated way back when.
And what might he do at Starbucks to address the shift in identity that the company has undergone?
Yeah, so in the weeks since he's, you know, just started on the job, he's been meeting with employees to try to get a sense of what they're seeing in stores. You know, he's been spending a lot of time in headquarters. I think in terms of the store experience, you know, he has acknowledged this shift, which is, let alone, you know, that in itself is just a big deal for him because, you know, this company is his baby, as is the in-store experience. So him, you know, acknowledging that the store experience has to change is a big deal. He has not said what that will look like. I mean, he floated some kind of preliminary ideas, you know, including maybe even offering NFTs of Starbucks to try to show that Starbucks is a brand more than just its stores. It, you know, carries a lot of currency in all kinds of other ways. But he really hasn't said much about the store experience yet. In terms of the workers, we do know he has said that he is developing and plans to offer new benefits for workers, that he has heard a lot about the pay and benefits just not keeping up maybe with competitors, and workers looking for more through the union campaign, and also just workers day to day. So we do expect he will announce something soon about better pay and benefits and, maybe other perks for workers.
I'm glad you brought up that this is Schultz's baby, because I wonder if his personal vision for this company is interfering with business decisions at some point. What's it going to take for him to transform this company?
Well, we're still learning that. Again, he's been on the job for a little less than a month, and this has been a homecoming for him, and he's had to get up to speed. And I think he's been honest that he's also learning about the company since he left. I mean, when he left the company the last time, he was looking at running for president. He really did separate himself from the company. It's in recent months where he's been pulling himself back in and getting up to speed. And he is known as being very headstrong, but he does take advice. So I think one question is, how much will he be listening to those around him? And how much does he think that he is the one with the vision right now and knows what needs to happen and knows that dramatic things need to happen to try to, change things for the company? Already we have seen him do something very dramatic, which was canceling the buybacks for shareholders. On his first day back to the company, he canceled billions of dollars in stock buybacks and said, we need to invest these into cafes and workers. And that was a pretty dramatic move. Something certainly I expect that the previous CEO wouldn't have done, because he just had restored the buybacks, but that's something Howard Schultz did and felt confident enough to do.
And a nod maybe towards the more than 250 stores with employees that are voting on whether to unionize. This is a significant issue in the company's transformation, and one of the reasons he's back on the scene. What is his role here in this unionization effort?
Well, he's the CEO, so he has been pretty candid about how he feels about unionization. He does not support it. He thinks it's a divisive wedge within the company. And he has written and spoken about before about his feelings on unions. And he thinks for a company like Starbucks, where, arguably the company has paid better pay and benefits for workers for a long time than many other similarly situated restaurant companies, I think there's a little sense of, why is this happening to Starbucks? We do a lot for employees. The employees say that, the conditions of the stores have really changed. A lot of that is from the pandemic, that the job has gotten a lot harder, that their pay and benefits haven't kept up with competitors, as competitors are paying more for workers. And, they think this is the time. So Howard Schultz has clearly made it known that he wants to show that he is back and that the company cares for its workers and that it can do a lot for its workers without unionization. But, this train has really left the station. I think it's going to be hard to just derail it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I read a quote recently that said organizing is contagious. There has been a stunning spread of unionization efforts at Starbucks stores. And it's been rocky, right? He was out there on a listening tour. How did that go?
Well, so, we know what the company has said about the listening tour, which is that it has gone well, that he has gone out and spoken to employees and heard their concerns and has been pretty frank about that there are a lot of problems at the company and it needs help and it needs addressing. And I think he has made it clear that he is there to do that. From the union side, I think they feel like his statements have only been harmful. When he went out to Buffalo in November before those stores had even voted, he gave a speech just, before he was back as a CEO, and that did not go over great. 2 of the 3 stores voted to unionize. So a lot of these workers don't know who Howard Schultz is in terms of a direct experience before. So many of these workers are new, whereas, in HQ and maybe some of the veteran workers, his name really carries a lot of power. People are excited for him to be back. For younger workers, I don't think it quite resonates in the same way.
And you made the point in your article that 70% of the workforce has been there under a year. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, there's just been a huge shift in its workforce. And, mind you, restaurant work, retail work, it's high turnover. This is not exactly unusual. But Starbucks traditionally had been a job, I think, that people had stuck around for at a longer clip. People would be at those stores for years. Now, that's not the case. And a lot of that has to do with the pandemic. A lot of people left those jobs because people were fearful. People didn't want to work in a store environment. And that's really changed the dynamic in these stores. There's a lot of newer workers who are, again, having to deal with these more stressful workplace environments. There's just a lot coming at them. And, that has fueled some of this agitation.
Heather, the effort around unionization has gotten increasingly spicy in terms of dialogue. There have been accusations that the company has fired workers who have led unionization efforts. Schultz also referred to the union effort as unseemly. That's a pretty specific word to use about the effort. How is that factoring in?
Yeah, so we had a story about that this week, about the high number of labor practice filings that have been filed on both sides now, where each side is accusing each other of increasingly sharp and pointed things. So the union says that the company has retaliated against workers, has fired workers who were involved in union activities. The company says that these workers have been bullying and harassing workers who are not interested in unionizing. And yeah, Howard has, made some of his views pretty clear. I mean, that unseemly comment was particularly about an incident where there was a commemoration for an employee who was killed off duty. And he said that union organizers disrupted that event, and he found it very disrespectful. And that's what he was talking about in terms of unseemly. But I think that does reflect, his view that he does not appreciate this effort and the tone and character that some of these workers are taking.
Yeah. Today, there will be an earnings report from Starbucks, the first since when Howard Schultz returned. What do you expect we're going to see there, Heather?
So I think from an investor side, I think investors are expecting that earnings are going to come down. I mean, I think Howard has made that clear that he's going to be spending more on workers, on the business, on the cafes, on the operations, and that in the short term means less profit to return to shareholders. So I think, in the short term, investors might be disappointed with what they see. In the bigger picture, we are really waiting to see what Howard says on these new benefits, new spending on workers. I mean, that's the big question mark. What will it look like? How dramatic is it? Is it enough to really slow down this union organizing effort? Does it make, some of these workers think twice about joining the union because they want to make sure they get those new benefits? So we definitely expect him to talk about that. And then I think he'll just give a, kind of candid assessment of what he's seen in the business in his first month back. We've been talking a lot about the U.S., but I know he's also been talking to employees in China, which is such a key market for them, about what their experience is and what's going on there. I mean, they've had all kinds of COVID disruptions. So there's a lot that we expect him to address. I mean, just in the first month, I think he has been very busy. So we'll be learning about that soon.
Yeah. Heather Haddon, really appreciate your reporting. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Heather Haddon is a reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening. Caroline Chamberlain Gomez produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you tomorrow.